This past Saturday, December 3rd, was the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. It's a day that hopes to create a more inclusive and equitable world for people with exceptional needs. And in my opinion, no organization does that better than Christian Horizons. Its CEO, Janet Noel-Annable, joins me today to talk about how we can do that.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, thanks for joining me.
It's great to be here.
You know, when you think about this day that's set aside, kind of to give the message to the world, we need to create a more equitable world for persons with disabilities. Is it happening? There's obviously a need for it. Mm-hmm. What do you see?
So, you know, there has been great success and new initiatives and new programs all across the world. There is good movement towards creating a world where everyone belongs, but there's so much work to do. Certainly internationally, from a development perspective, there's enormous effort that's needed to include people with disabilities in the overall development objectives and goals of the United Nations, and that's why this day is set aside. But even here in Canada, there's work to do. One would expect that here in Canada that people, citizens with an intellectual or developmental disability, have access to all the services that they need, and unfortunately it's not the case. Still, people are left out of schools, they're left out of education, they're left out of social infrastructure, they're left out of the church community. So we're working hard with our partner organizations, with government, with the community at large, and certainly with the church to create a place where everybody belongs and everybody is valued.
And there was just a report here in Ontario specifically that said we're not living up to those standards. What was that report?
Sure. So the Ombudsman for Ontario, has been working on studying developmental services for the last number of years, actually since 2012. And he put together a report that was released just a couple of months ago about some pretty disturbing circumstances. I think there were 27 cases that he looked at of people with an intellectual disability that really had fallen into the gap. And so actually I wrote a letter to the editor that was picked up by a number of different news sources that, you know, we congratulate the Ombudsman for his work. Certainly he's unearthed and shown us some circumstances that we should be horribly upset about. It is devastating to think that people are living like that in Canada today. And certainly this was Ontario, but it could be seen as probably happening right across Canada. I also congratulated the Ontario government because they are working hard to address these issues. They are investing. We'd like to see more investment, but there is investment, there's good thinking, there's wonderful people in government that are trying hard to figure out solutions to some of these challenges. But I also called out to our community because, you know, no matter of what government investment or program or legislation is in place, really a good life comes from being connected with our friends, our families, our loved ones. And we believe that the church community, the community at large for sure, but certainly the church community could do so much in creating communities of belonging. Not just seeing how they can reach out from a charitable or benevolent perspective, but how they can reach out with true inclusion and belonging and embrace people with disabilities to be full members of their church community.
So I think most people watching this would say, yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. But what are the barriers between where we're at now and really getting there? What do you see?
Well, I mean, there's no shortage of barriers, unfortunately. Certainly there's physical barriers, there's legislative barriers. Persons with intellectual disabilities have very little access to vocational or employment training that would help them get a great career. Because certainly through employment and being a part of a workforce is a great way for people to belong and be members of their community. But I guess probably the area that I see the most opportunity in is attitudinal barriers. Certainly wherever you go, there's preconceived ideas about people with intellectual disabilities, and it really creates a place where people are othered or seen as, you know, not a part of. And I think we have work that we can do on that. You know, a lot of times people see people with disabilities, even in the church community, as someone who is broken or doesn't have something to contribute. And what I've seen time and time again is that when people with disabilities are seen as contributors and participants and something to offer, the whole community benefits, not just the person with the disability, but the people who are people without disabilities benefit, whether it's a workplace, whether it's a church community, whether it's a neighborhood or a school. And it's changing that attitude about people's participation. I think that's where we really need to start.
And that starts really with exposure or, you know, being in relationship with people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
And I experienced that myself, and I think I could speak for a lot of people watching who say they agree with you and they want to do it, but there's an intimidation factor sometimes. There's a fear leaving your comfort zone because you don't know necessarily what that relationship will involve. You don't know what's needed. And I can just say I had a friend join me when I was in university, join our wing, who is deaf, And I thought she was so cool, but I didn't know how to talk to her. I knew she could read lips. I didn't know how much. I didn't know how to talk slowly or what I didn't know any of it. And I was scared. I was just genuinely scared. But she was the person who reached out to me and was kind of like, I am who I am. If you have a problem with it, it's your problem. I'm just going to be myself. And because of her attitude, she broke down the barriers in my heart. And she taught me about how to communicate with someone who is deaf but could read lips. She taught me about how, exactly what you said, she doesn't see herself as someone that needs to be fixed.
No.
She sees herself as someone who communicates differently.
Absolutely.
That's it, right?
And you know, her participation, and certainly the people that we know that are, whether they're involved, like I said, in a church or in a workplace, not only do they affect, you know, their being there, but they affect everybody around them. There's an employer in Scarborough, Ajax area. He owns a number of Tim Hortons. His name is Mark Wafer, and I think maybe we've spoken about him before on this show. But he talks about not only the wonderful employees that he hires who have a developmental disability and are such contributors. They're always there. They're excited to be at work. They're proud of their uniform. All those sorts of things. But it also affects the whole group of people. If it affects the other employees, they're brought up by the participation of some of these employees who are so proud to be a part of that workplace. And my suggestion, just like you did, you reached out to that person, that friend of yours in university. That's where it starts. Build a relationship. Go and ask somebody, how can I help? How can I invite them to be a part of something? Invite them to join you at your home church or your cell group, or invite them to join you for coffee after church on Sunday. Actually, a couple weeks ago, my husband and I were helping set up at our church. Our church has a big process of setting up and taking down every Sunday, so it's a lot of work for people. And there was a fellow that probably might have been left out if people hadn't made an effort in including him. And he was such a wonderful participant on this group, and I'm so proud to be a part of that group with him, helping all work together. So reach out, invite someone to be a partner, invite someone to be a work buddy, or whatever it is that you're doing.
I love that. And as followers of Jesus, we should always be on the front edge of pioneering and changing our culture to be a more inclusive place. Thank you so much. We could talk forever, but we're out of time. If people want to find out more, what is your website?
www.christian-horizons.org.
Okay, you want to check it out and learn a little bit more about this. We all need to do our part to make a difference in this country and include everyone.